Hello and welcome to the Gerry Leeds United show. With just a few minutes past there, um, Leeds have just lost to Everton 2-1. So we're going to have to try and not be depressing and lift the mood. So I'm joined here by JK. So obviously, after two wins, we lost tonight. What did you make of the overall performance?
Well, we bit different from the Brighton performance, Gerry, if you remember the last time. So I'm not a lucky charm, obviously, when it comes to home matches. So I'll not be doing the Palace one. I'll tell you that in advance. But as you remember, I was very vexed after the Brighton game. Probably other chaps were on that day probably brought me down a bit. Said, "Yeah, look, come on, let's be reasonable." Tonight, I'm just obviously nobody likes a loss. Never do. That said, overall, I think we deserve probably a point. We'll talk more about that as we go on, I'm sure. But overall, I think the first half, you know, the frustration was you thought yourself, well, look, they're two goals up, and really, have they created an awful lot? Did they look two goals better than us? Possibly not. And obviously, you had a couple of chances, Struik, Alioski off the post. And on another day, those go in. It's maybe 2-2 at half time, or maybe one of those two goals that they scored weren't goals for whatever reason. So overall, you know, I'm realistic. At the end of the day, you know, you talk about the looking down or looking up. We've talked about that over the last number of shows. Again, results lower down mean that you can't afford these slip ups, if that's the way you want to put it. Overall, I'm not that disappointed. If I'm disappointed, I always hate defeat. It doesn't matter who it's against, how it goes about. But overall, just one of those days.
I think it is. I had a wee sort of feeling from whenever I got up this morning, and I was thinking back to like the shows, and I was listening to other shows and reading on Twitter, and Leeds tend to get a kick in the arse whenever they're particularly confident. And there were very few people seemed to be, you know, thinking that this was going to be, you know, we were going to win the night and 3 points. And then I have to be honest, I was kind of pessimistic at that. And then whenever I seen the news that Rafinha and Bamford were fit, I was feeling a lot more confident. Obviously the way the game went, like we definitely, you know, like we played well. You know, like I thought the tempo was good. It wasn't like Brighton where you were looking at it and it was just like you're looking at players and thinking, you know, you are so far below your level. Like I think everyone kind of, like, while not brilliant, everybody, you know, done well. There wouldn't be that many I would look at and say, you know, that was kind of down to you. You know, there might have been a couple of individual mistakes, but I don't think there was too many really bad performances. Overall, the play was good. We created loads of chances. The keeper made a few good saves. I know you mentioned about if Jordan Pickford had been playing, would we have got something? But
yeah,
I think.
Well, I see. I'm talking about Scots, Gerry. Obviously, you're the Scot. You said your man Olsen was CRAP. So, so I'm giving you. Unless he's playing against us.
The actual goal. A guy like that, like you're kind of looking at a big goalkeeper like that. He's a big guy, and kind of the one shot that we hit low down went in, and he didn't really look anywhere near getting it. You know, and anything that like if you're like you've got a frame like he has, and you're firing shots into the corners, like he's gonna be able to reach at them. You know, and he made a few decent saves. Obviously, there was a few very good ones, but some of them, you know, just were like it's hard to say like. You know, you maybe hit it a bit high or you hit it because, you know, at the end of the day, if you get it on target, you know, it's a good effort and he has to make the save. But just think that sometimes a big goalie like that, hit them nice and low, keep them down and make it hard for him to react. But at the end of the day, the guy played well. You know, he played well. He had a good game, made some good saves. Just on sort of the goals and stuff then. So the first goal, I looked at it the first time I looked at it. I looked at Luke Ayling, and I was kind of like, where was I? You know, but whenever I kind of seen it then and watched it back, I actually think Luke Ayling was exactly where Bielsa would have told him to be. You know,
Yes.
he's in that midfield and he looks like he does like a sort of early press, and then he looks and he goes as if he's going to run back, and he looks and he sees Richarlison, where if you're playing man to man, that's who his man would have been. And Richarlison kind of inside, and he makes the move inside. Rafinha's where he should be. He's tracking the guy back and gets right to the byline with him. He maybe could have been a wee bit more forceful in his challenge, but I thought for me the big issue was in the middle. Like, you know, Rafinha probably done what he could to stop the ball coming in, but that guy must have ran 40, 50 yards. And if you're playing man to man, somebody surely should have been, close to him and tracking that run, and they weren't. And you could see I thought Strake was a wee bit out of position, but then you also had a massive gap then, and Cooper, Phillips, and Alioski, you could have threw a blanket over them, and I thought that if we had been defending better, the guy found the right run, the right ball. It was unfortunate, but I do think we could have done a wee bit better. What did you think yourself?
Well, I'm sure it'll probably come up in the next while. We'll mention the pitch aesthetically looks fantastic, but I don't know. Certainly, I thought more Leeds players seemed to not be staying on their feet, and obviously Harrison slipped at the start. That ball he played cross field, which is a typical ball that we do play, and that was the start of it. So there were a few out of position as a result of that anyway, who were sort of thinking that's going to go to where it should be going to, and I bomb on, which is what Bielsa expects. So there were people out. Yeah, I watched the goal several times, and yes, the ball came across. Rafinha could have done more. He had that was a super ball. He is it 17 assists he has as an Everton career. He was voted the best fullback. I'm not sure of left back, but I think it's actually fullback in the Premier League by some poll. Obviously an unofficial one, but nonetheless, he still came top of whatever poll that was. So he's a good player, that guy. And 3 of the 5 of the back five, were changed. Or just 4 or 5, I can't remember. 3 out of 5 or 4 or 5 were changed from the defeat against Newcastle. He stayed in place, and obviously Ancelotti decided he was good enough to stay there. But yeah, avoidable. So I think that's a disappointing thing overall in the season. There's goals that you look at and you think to yourself, we wouldn't have considered them in the Championship, probably anyway, because they wouldn't have the guile, the sort of either midfield runners like Sigurdsson or alternatively Calvert-Lewin, which we'll get on to, I'm sure, at some stage. But overall, both goals I thought probably avoidable. But again, to go back to what we said at the very start, it's just one of those nights where just, I've been a bit more prepared tonight, Gerry. Just because it was myself, I thought, because I'm on my own tonight with you, I thought myself, I'll make a bit more of an effort. And I have written down things here just to remind, because normally I work off memory, and I'm getting too old for that, to be honest. So, I'm writing down some of the things that overall that happened. I don't know. I'm sure again we'll mention Michael Oliver in time, for good or for bad. I think things like again, the frustration, you sort of scream at the TV. Definitely were some things that I thought he blew up for that he shouldn't have done, and vice versa. I thought he was quite almost like, one of those games you watch, and if you're the away team, you think, well, that's a home decision. That's a home decision. I thought an awful lot of Everton. I'm sure you remember that there was a challenge right at the day, very, very close to, and within that 5-minute window of the extra time, and there's definitely a foul, I think, on Rafinha. I think it was just outside the box, and Oliver put it on, and it was clear, and that would have been, and we still had the Roberts effort even after that to to get Sean Wilkinson's ACCA up for him. Overall, I thought the referee, whilst he probably is, for me, he's one of the best in the business, but I suppose it's not a very high bar in the Premier League for me. I don't think a lot of referees are very good. There's a lot of frustration. And if you're Southampton, for example, you start telling the authorities who can or who shouldn't be officiating your games. And I can feel the frustration to a point, but my goodness, they actually say we don't want Lee Mason and Mike Dean, couldn't remember his name there for a second. How could I not? Officiating any of our games going forward. You know, there's not a massive pool of referees and fourth officials, and from what I can see, excuse me, it seems to be the same faces pretty much. You know, there must be enough just to cover the games that are happening, and the more. You don't see many new faces, and there doesn't seem many coming through. So, you know, what about yourself? How do you think Mike Oliver did tonight?
There was definitely a couple of ones. There was the one that you mentioned. I think it was Rafinha, or if it was the one I'm thinking of, it was kind of over towards the left side. And then there was one as well.
I had one now. I had one sort of more, if not central, slightly to the right. So Rafinha stayed down. Oh no, I think that's another one that I definitely I remember you're chatting about. So a few of those, you know, over the page. On another night, somebody let's go on to maybe some of the other things, the unusuals for us. Over the last number of seasons, actually, the frustration that people have. Calvin Phillips hits a dead ball so well, except when he's taking a corner. Rafinha tonight, every time that ball was fizzed in, it felt like you could hear the reaction of the bench. And to me, it almost felt, I know it's mad to say, like there was a crowd in there. It was quite a noisy atmosphere for a stadium that nobody in it, or virtually nobody in it. But every time that ball was fizzed in, you felt just somebody, you know, put the head on it and it could go in, you know. And you don't feel that way when other people are taking corners so much. But definitely, you know, if that's something they've worked on and something that they've practiced over the pace, that's only going to get better, because people will get more used to. I think that's from what I could say. Is that the first night that he's really seems to have done that? Seems to have maybe taken over. I don't know where it's or he thought himself, like, you know what, I'm going to do it tonight, see how we get on, and if it doesn't work out, then sure, we'll go back to Calvin or maybe somebody else. But I think tonight, you know, if that's the way you're going to do it, then you would say to yourself, keep that going for a while anyway, and see, because you're going to benefit from it ultimately. Because you know, Struik and Cooper gets a few a season, hasn't got many this season. You know, he'll score a few possibly before the season's out. So again, balls fizzed in like that, someone's going to get on the end, and whether it's a header or the Alioski shot that we've mentioned already, you know, things like that. That's only going to improve with time. So to me, Calvin would be far better either at the edge of the box to strike a ball, because he can strike a ball. But I think he's wasted on corners.
I think there's just like I like don't know how many matches, not even just Leeds, just any time you're watching football, how many times you're watching a game and a corner comes in and it's like they've got a vendetta against the first offender, where like it's literally like, I'm going to try and hit this guy in the head as many times as I can, you know, and it kills you. Like you're thinking these guys are thousands and thousands of pounds a week, and you think you're sitting there, and it's one of them things where you genuinely think, I could do a better corner than that, you know, and I am not a good footballer, like, you know, you sometimes think you could, like, and I think it's interesting what you say about Rafinha. Certainly, he seemed to be taking them from one side, and Phillips then was taking some from the other side as well, and certainly in that first half, whenever I think there was one stage looking, it was like 6 corners to 0 to us at the one stage, like, and putting a lot of pressure on. But yeah, I think with regards corners, you know, Rafinha was getting the quality into the box. But what I would say is Everton probably weren't a good team, a particularly good matchup for us to be, you know, being dangerous at corners. I think they have a lot of guys like a big Gerry, like, and the wee guy, is it Godfrey that they give man of the match? He had a few good.
Godfrey was. I would have had if you'd asked me before. Leon Osman said who the man of the match was. Godfrey was the man of the match. To be fair, he was outstanding. I
thought what he called was very good as well. To Curry, I think he's a good player.
Yeah, he broke up
Wasn't
broke up broke up a couple of things out, middle of the park. Did that sort of spoiling role very well, I thought. Yeah. But overall, yes, those players you've mentioned, but it was much of a muchness, wasn't it? It was very, very close. Like, again, the brief time that I had to go on before this 15 minutes goes very quickly. But I did a quick scan on Twitter, and my lord, honestly, Leeds fans, and I probably am guilty of it at times, but honestly, the doom and gloom. People get rid of the back four. Get rid of the back four. This is the back four who, outstanding on Sunday. How can it change so quickly? People need to take a step back, look at the reality, which is we have 29 points. We are whatever number of points it is ahead of the bottom three. Two of those three lost again in this set of fixtures. And all Sheffield United did was pull themselves up towards West Brom. I just to go on to that briefly, I think Sheffield United, I have a sneaking suspicion they might still just get out of trouble. I do.
I would imagine that makes you popular in the room.
Oh, I generally do. I think, I'm not saying I would be happy about it, but what I'm saying is I'm being realistic. I think they just might. And I think Big Sam, it's been a job too far. Fulham just aren't, they're not winning enough games. So I think that despite their best efforts, and I know Brighton are still a wee bit ahead, but you know what? They get sucked into it too. Like, we don't know. It was 0-0 there at half time. Last I looked in the match at Anfield, but that'll probably not stay the same.
I think Brighton were winning, by the way.
Brighton are?
The last I seen, Brighton were winning 1-0.
Yeah. Hold on, that's all right. Thank you. Have you been on that drink again?
Yeah, 1-0.
And you know what I like. So hold on a sec here. You're right, it is.
Yeah.
Alzali. Never heard him. But it is your man Kelleher in nets, but he's done quite well for Liverpool. Anytime he's come in for Alisson. I don't know whether it's an injury or again too much going on, Gerry. Too much to keep. You have to sort of let this news filter down the next day and see why people aren't playing or why this didn't happen, because you've got your match to watch, you've got this to do, and then everything else that goes on. So, but anyway, back to our match. What do you want to go for next? What do you want to mention next?
I was actually going to ask you a wee question. Just obviously whenever you mentioned about Sheffield United, and I had my wee joke in there. So, as two Irish lads, who obviously I don't know about you, but I don't have any family connections or anything to Leeds as such, and it's all the reasons why I started supporting Leeds. But what way do you find like the derbies and stuff, like the Yorkshire derbies? Like, do you find that you have that big rivalry, or is in your head the rivalries teams just around them in the league, or what way do you feel about
that? Well, I'll answer that question best I can. See the time David Wagner playing with Huddersfield. I was not happy with that day. So that's I'll answer the question. I'll keep. It's a family show to a point, so I'll keep it clean. But I was not. No, I would look out for those sort of even the days of Bradford and all the rest when they were up in the Premier League. Mr. Collymore was playing for them. Even then, those sort of games, Bradford, Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United, Huddersfield, those sort of games. Yeah, I think there's an extra wee edge to those. Obviously, you have the rivalries. You're referring to the bigger ones, but I think some people would see those more as, and of course, those Hull, they like to throw themselves in the mix. We don't, but they do try to throw themselves in as if they're part of that sort of set as well. But definitely, I would. There's a bit of needle, I think there always was in those sort of games. If you think about 2 seasons ago when Basham scored a goal at Ellen Road, and the reaction then, you know, it was and Billy Sharp, obviously, Sheffield United, ex-Leeds and Sheffield United again, and the way he celebrated and all the rest of it, like the players themselves, you know, it's obvious that there's a needle there. So yeah, no, to answer your question, yeah, definitely, I would look out for those, and I keep an eye on the scores. I know I've sort of seen on social media there people asking the question: does anybody bother with the championship from a Leeds perspective? I still look at the scores. I still want to know, you know, who potentially is going to go up this season, and again, who's going to go down. You know, is it going to be Sheffield Wednesday? I think they're sort of starting to turn a bit of a corner now. The Pulis experiment didn't work, obviously. You know, yeah, keep an eye on it, but it'll be interesting to see what happens there in that division as well. A football fan in general, you know, obviously I have my allegiance, but you know, I'd watch 11 people out in my back garden if it was big enough in the rain. I wouldn't care. You know, I'll watch any football, any level. Doesn't bother me.
I think probably from my perspective and like the sort of local derbies for Leeds, one thing I think that for the likes of me and you, social media has kind of probably got us a bit more involved in those local rivalries, because like I know, like whenever I was younger and like Leeds were in the Premier League, and at that time like everybody I went to school with or worked with were Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, and you kind of, you know, like you didn't know any Sheffield United fans. Like there was no Sheffield United fans running about my school or Sheffield Wednesday fans running about my school, so it didn't feel. But then since like the social media era, and you're going on things like your Twitter and you're seeing like all the comments and the negativity from Huddersfield, Sheffield Wednesday in particular, you know, there are a few teams and they're always having a pub at Leeds. And then I think that does probably get me more riled up and more interested in those derby games, whereas obviously to the local lads, like the boys that are from Leeds and from Yorkshire, you know, they'll probably be in and around those people all the time, you know, so it is stuff that they'll hear about all the time. But to me, it was just always, before social media, it was something that I never was that concerned about. I think we've lost John, but I'm sure he'll be back in a wee minute. He's probably away to try and find out what the score is in the Liverpool and Brighton match again. He's definitely a bit of interest in that game tonight, so he has. I don't know what. I know that was 1-0, and some of the other games, I think West Ham were winning 2-0 as well. But yeah, so overall, I haven't checked the league tables now since tonight's game was over, but I know last night we went up from 12th to 11th. Obviously, I was kind of starting to look at Everton as a potential team that we could have caught up on, but it doesn't look likely. Obviously now they're 7 ahead of us, and I think they might have games in hand. I'm just going to check here just 1 second and see if I can get John back. Not sure whether he'll be. I'll see if he comes back or not. But yeah, so just while he was away, then sort of looking at the game overall tonight. There's Ross has come up with a comment. So, hi Gerry, I think it was just one of them nights for Leeds United. Played well and deserved something from the game. Olsen had a blinder and kept Everton in the game. Can't switch off in this league. Yeah, it's hard to argue with that, Ross. I think there's John back now.
I'll have to go on phone, Gerry. My computer's not off, so hold on a second there.
Okay. I was just saying there, Ross has commented basically what we were kind of saying. So Olsen played well. I know I give Olsen a wee bit of stick earlier, but it sort of turned out that he's done us good.
Yeah, 100%. So you were saying about we were cut off there. You were saying about when you were younger, about teams that would have been supportive. See, you were going to say those bad words, Man United. Look, it happened.
Yeah, well, do you know what? They always were. Like, I guarantee you, and your immediate team of people that you're working with at the minute, I guarantee there's two or three of them. Like,
Dare say I've got friends that are Man United fans, so we'll not go there. But associates.
I think in Ireland you'll find generally that they are everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's but do you know what, Gerry? It's been said now. There's a real amazement about the amount of people that support Leeds and the company that I work in now currently. And I'm talking about people saying it from other fan bases, Liverpool, Manchester United, Arsenal. They just cannot believe this. Is seriously, it must be just the age, the workforce. I'm not entirely sure, but they just cannot believe the amount of people. And there's another one, there's another one, there's another one. And I've always been very vocal, never hidden behind who I support. So whenever Leeds were promoted. Obviously, we weren't in work because of COVID, which is ironic. But it was the same for Liverpool fans. After them winning the league after 30 years, they weren't there to all the stick that those both sets of fans have taken over the years. And yet, when it all comes, but do we really care? Not really. We're happy that we are where we are now, even despite tonight's result. But do you want to do more on the match tonight?
I will do. We'll do a couple of minutes, Gareth, because I've told the wife I'll watch a TV program with her here, so I'm gonna have to keep her sweet here that I watch the match all night. So,
Right. Is it
what
married at first sight or something on you, Gerry?
what did you make then of the second half performance?
Much improved, obviously. Although I don't think, it was sort of a wee bit disappointed with the first half, but overall, obviously Mr. Bielsa had words at half time. They didn't change. I was expecting a wee bit of a change in personnel, hand on heart at half time. I thought myself there's going to be a bit of a change. Surprised that there wasn't. But again, as we've said ourselves, when there's a time he knows best, he obviously decided, look, this is what you need to be doing better. He probably did say it's fine margins here. You're 2-0 down. We've already mentioned potentially both avoidable goals. And the fact that Rafinha scored so early in the second half, I think that gave you maybe false hope that they were going to. I never thought to myself when it went to 2-1, I thought, great, we're going to win 3-2. I thought to myself, we get to 2 each after being 2-0 down at half time, you'd have taken a point there and then. I think overall, maybe something that you mentioned earlier on about the confidence and overconfidence. I think that's based on the fact that we beat them at Goodison Park. I think there was a false sort of expectation almost that we were just going to go and do exactly the same. We rode our luck a wee bit at Goodison Park, if we're honest about it. Super goal from Rafinha that night. But on another night, they could have easily scored a couple, and us have the one. I think from memory, we had one really decent chance, which was the Rafinha one. It wasn't even a chance; it was just a speculative shot, but a brilliant shot nonetheless. So I think that's where that stems from. The sort of why people thought that we were in with a better chance maybe than we were. Like they're still high up the league. I don't think they've totally written off their chances of potentially winning it, because if other results went their way over a sustained period of time, City, yes, very good. But if they went through a good spell of wins, then who knows? It's a mad season. It's one of those ones you just can't predict what's going to happen. You've mentioned there about the Brighton result tonight. How many people are going to even remotely predict they're going to score? So obviously my Sheffield United prediction is going to be gone tonight. If Brighton win that tonight, I think actually those bottom three gone. Realistically. Just trying to think. Let me see if I did take notes. Was a wee bit concerned just at the very, very start. I have to say, Phillips, obviously that injury they had, before we kicked the ball. and it looked like potentially wasn't going to play. It didn't. Obviously, he's still in the second half. Remember, don't be surprised if he doesn't play against Crystal Palace, because I think he's probably done a wee bit of damage there, because you could see he was wincing in the second half. Similarly, Bamford had a bit of a knock. Maybe, I know with the dead leg from Sunday, he seemed to be limping a wee bit towards the end. Again, Crystal Palace, not a great side. They just seem to do enough every season and no more. So I would mix it up a wee bit. Rest some of these players. That's what Ancelotti did tonight. He sort of masked it a wee bit when he's asked about James Rodriguez. Why is he not playing? Wanted to rest him. He's had too many games. He hasn't been playing well enough. Simple as that. In Ancelotti's eyes, that's why he rested him tonight. A bit like Titch for us. Who looked, I thought, forlorn when he came off tonight. Yes, he different reaction to Richarlison. Richarlison was disgusted he was taken off, but Pitch at least shook. Bielsa's sort of patted him. The two of them sort of had a wee bit of acknowledgement at the end. He's probably thinking himself, look, well, I'm the full guy here a wee bit. But so concerned about Phillips now probably for that match. And I was also concerned about when I saw Rafinha was playing, delighted, but at the same time a bit concerned. A bit like the Llorente situation, comes back too early, and as a result then doesn't, we're out for longer term. So I was a bit nervous that way. We've already mentioned the pitch looking better, but too many people slipping. So change all your studs, boys, for Monday night. Mentioned about Sigurdsson, I've written down here, slip. Remember, it was mentioned tonight in comedy, I had forgotten this. He was 45 million quid when he went to Everton. Has he paid them back? Don't think so. Remember the money at the time, and people were thinking that's a lot of money for that player. He would have been always, when I used to do it, he would have been one of my first choices in fantasy football, because he always got a great number of points at one stage. But he's few and far between now in terms of good performances. But of course, he decides to pop up tonight. And then obviously the shot off the post, too easy. I've written down for the corner, just the Calvert Lewin. It was just far too easy, and we've seen too many times.
I think the fact that if there was one guy that you were going to mark at the corner, Calvert Lewin's that.
Yeah, true. Just to mention something that we haven't touched on yet. Look, Ealing, that was a handball and should have been a penalty for them of our check. I don't know if you noticed though. A mate of mine who's a big Leeds man sent me a WhatsApp message, said just basically what we're saying now. I'm disappointed, but overall, at least we had a go. Definitely should have been a penalty for Everton, and I agree. However, Michael Keane had a tasty wee handball. Again, in that 5 minutes at the very end, that ball came in and came off his hand. And Leeds players did it hail.
I couldn't understand. I thought it was a handball, but it didn't even really show it again properly from the right angle. Anyway.
And so yes, it would have evened itself out. I suppose one each was missed, but there again, it's the bigger debate, isn't it, about VAR? What exactly is it there for? It doesn't seem to be. It's not fulfilling its purpose at all. We've had, not to dwell on other games like last night was ludicrous. Again, they mentioned why Southampton are challenging who's going to officiate their games. The Matty Cash one at the weekend. You just think to yourself, how are these? It's not only that they're being missed sometimes, but it's the fact that they're being checked again, and yet the same answer comes back, which is no, that's not a penalty. And you're thinking, every single other person watching that thinks it's a penalty based on other penalties. The Matty Cash one was the same as, and I didn't say it. I said it wasn't a penalty on day one. The Robin Cox one, it's more of a penalty than Robin Cox was. Yet it was given against us, and the other one wasn't. And we've come on how far away in the season now? 5 months, whatever it is, and it's no better, But look, let's not make any excuses. Overall, yes, we probably deserved a point, but I would say a point and no more. On a different night, we would have got a point, maybe even 3. But I'm not going to say the better team won, but overall, probably you think yourself, well, it's 2-1. not. We could have done an awful lot more. You've mentioned Olsen, the keeper, had some good saves, and a wee bit more luck. That Tyler Roberts chance at the very end, which I've already mentioned. That mate of mine that I've mentioned there, he said if anybody else, if anybody else, I actually thought, look, he's having, at least, again, he showed a lot of energy. We've mentioned this over a couple of these shows now. For a player that was the butt of so much abuse, social media wise, not him. Why we get him on loan? I actually thought he might have still gone on loan. But I think as in the Championship, can't they still bring players in on loan now, even though the transfer window? So who knows? He might still go, depending on what happens with injuries and etc. But yes, he blasted over the bar, and on a different day that goes in the top corner, and everybody's isn't a hero. Again, Helder Costa, the short cameo we had. You mentioned him the other night. Thought he looked.
Bring this up. Ross has said he doesn't. Costa hasn't done well for a few weeks now. Don't know why it's all playing. Yeah, it's hard to argue with.
Very true. And look, another player I'll mention who has been very, very good for us and has got the plaudits rightly so. I thought Harrison was very, very quiet tonight. Very quiet. I thought he lacked a bit of energy. Just looked a wee bit sort of. He looks knackered. I know there was a bit of a joke about the fact that Paddy Bamford nearly has interviewed a lot of games afterwards, and he is absolutely out of breath, and he is. But and they say about Harrison, he's sort of like, oh, still fresh faced. I don't think he is. I thought tonight he looked shattered on the pitch, and I would have had him taken off a wee bit earlier than he actually was. But it would have been for Costa, and then you would have thought, oh, why? And that, I think, does that show a bit of and Bielsa a bit of hesitancy to bring Costa on, because he's thinking, well, is he going to do it? And when all said and done, Bielsa, and others will probably listen to a point. They'll do. I'm sure there's somebody who monitors what's on social media to get a vibe of how fans are reacting, because they don't have any other barometer at the moment to work off, really, of how fans are feeling. And it's probably are picking up that the Costa experiment just at the moment for me isn't working. Terrible waste, because I think he's a talent, but it's just not working. So, but I would, mention before, is there not an opportunity here? And I suppose if we had got something tonight, and maybe it's further down the line, but I would be integrating a few of the under 23s a bit more. And I'm talking about people that haven't had a chance at all. I'm talking about Gelhardt, and others that haven't had a sniff. I would have played Gelhardt up front against Crawley and not played Rodrigo at all. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I would have done, because if the same result had happened, then it would have been, well, it's because of the team they played. That was said anyway, but it wouldn't have looked. Gelhardt, but I suppose Bielsa is very protective of people like that. And again, that's why I didn't let Greenwood go on loan. I know it was Swansea who came in with a cheeky offer, and a lot of people laughed at what happened with Dan James. People were like, how dare they even go anywhere near us? But he's very protective of that brood of players, and he didn't want to see somebody going and getting lumps kicked out of him. And maybe he has got plans going forward to play some of these once we get to that magical tally. And people have said, is it 40 points? No, probably not. It's probably going to be 35, something like that. Once we get to that, would you bring a few of those boys in and just give some of the players who've played, week in, week out for Bielsa without fail, a bit of a break, and have them fresher again for the next season, which is going to come around again, Gerry, very quickly. There's just not a break at all in football now, with the Euros coming as well. Potentially, as I said before, I don't think they're going to happen, if I'm honest. Or if they do, it'll be all behind closed doors. I just cannot see fans being at the Euros. It's just too soon.
I think on the likes of Costa, his age, and then there's a couple of younger guys. I think if Ian Pavetta was fit, we would have started our sort of come on. The wee guy Somerville seems to be getting good reputation in the under 23s. So definitely, there's a few of them that I would be looking at bringing in, but I don't know. I don't know exactly. sometimes whenever it's like, should they go out on loan? I think like they've probably got maybe a couple of years left to Bielsa, and will they, if they're training my hand, they may well learn stuff that's more beneficial to their players moving forward. Not necessarily playing, but training with him.
Yeah. I know you've mentioned that before, and I did note it when you said it. Yeah, it's a fair point. Maybe that's again part of the rationale. He's maybe letting players go out on loan. I think it's been said before. Look at the players that have gone on loan: Ryan Evanson, Robbie Gotts, and others. It's possibly because maybe the attitude needs a bit of tweaking. I'm not saying that's a terrible attitude. I think just needs that out. Get in the real world. It's not the Premier League here. You go down into League One, League Two, up to Aberdeen for Ryan Evanson. Not just so they know, this is what you will have a chance if you prove to me that you're worthy of a chance. And I think, maybe that's why Greenwood and others, as you say, maybe he thought to himself, well, they're doing enough, and maybe as time goes on this season, there will be opportunities for some of them, although some of our tougher games are towards the tail end of the season. And ultimately, it's probably going to come to see we play, I think I mentioned before, Liverpool, Manchester United at home 2 weeks in a row, and with City away as well. Leeds will probably have a bit of a say as to where the silverware ultimately ends up. I'll have a wee bit of a say, I think, because we'll probably beat one of those three. Don't know who.
I would like it if we could come out of as many games as possible where we get at least a point off things where, like, if they beat us the first time round, we get a point. But just before we go there, we'll just quick look ahead to Palace. What's your initial thoughts on that game?
Initial thoughts. I've already mentioned there. Don't think they're a great set. I don't think they're a great team. And do you know what? There's definitely one Palace fan that I would have sort of interactions with on social media, and he would be very critical of Roy Hodgson and the team overall. And I think it's sort of one of those ones. Roy Hodgson, will they just cut ties at the end of the season? Because again, using their fans as a barometer, they're probably thinking it's the same. It's a bit of drudgery. You have Zaha, who's an outstanding talent. I think he's injured, as far as I know. I think he got injured there last night. So, he'll be missing potentially, which has got to be a good thing for us. And obviously, the Eze has been quite a good signing for them for PPR. He was on our radar as well. There you are. There's Ross keeping us informed. Thank you. So there you are. There's two results. Funny enough, when I was checking the Liverpool score, I saw that Villa were losing 2-0 to West Ham at the time. Don't know if that's the final score. But it is a strange league. But you know what? You look at it. We played well against a team away from home on Sunday that turned us over 4-1. They did us 4-1. I thought it was an unrealistic result for a lot of reasons that particular day. And I'd be a wee bit more optimistic about Monday night's game and result and potential result than it possibly was about tonight. Albeit after the final score, yes, but realistically, we've got a bit of a break now. We're not playing until Monday night, and it'll rest a few weary legs, a few potential. We've no news on Rodrigo yet. I know he's going for a scan this week, but he'll be out for a couple of weeks, I would have thought. But he could mix up a wee bit of, not to be else away, but if he wanted to, he can make a few changes. I think maybe as Hernandez, would that be the sort of game you bring him in maybe from the start, just to see how things go. And if you need to take him off half time or after 60 minutes, and maybe bring on the legs of somebody else, Shackleton, whoever it may be, or Roberts again, whatever. That's a possibility, just to change things a wee bit. Because I think Everton, a lot of the teams that have beaten us this season, you can almost foresee it. I think you've mentioned yourself. You can almost foresee it. They have a game plan.
they've watched us obviously diligently. Somebody has been paid to go through how we attack, how we play our game, and I think that Palace will have done their homework. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, if we change things a wee bit and speak them a bit, why is that person playing there or that person playing in another position they don't normally? Then I've already mentioned Phillips potentially maybe be injured, and again we're going to have that whole central defensive midfielder debate. Struik, should be there, should he not be there? Will it be Shackled? And there's potential for that to maybe happen. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'd be more optimistic than I was on tonight in advance of the game.
I think Bielsa doesn't tend to like making too many changes, and I think if he was going to make changes, tonight would have been the night with the quick Sunday to Wednesday turnaround, I think, because we have Monday, and then I think it's Saturday after that. I suspect anybody that's will play, but you never know with Bielsa. But anyway, I'm going to go. I'm going to pay tribute to one of Leeds Norwegians by watching an episode of Vikings. So I'll be watching the TV in person, but I'll be very much thinking of Eric Baca, and I'll think of home while I'm doing it.
That's what you're going to watch then, is it? You catching the Vikings? Is that what it is? I tell you what, coincidentally, I've just started watching it there. I'm only on season 1, heard a lot of chat about it, and I'm enjoying it so far. I'll leave you with, I'll part with one of the comments that you made to me. So there you are. We've got various reasons why scuds have happened, and you mentioned about the 3 in a row, and you mentioned Paul Ogun. So cheers, Gerry. That's all I'm going to say to you. The Paul Ogun ghost
playing that 3 in a row thing. But anyway, thanks for joining me tonight. I'm sure we'll be chatting funny over the next few days anyway, and I have to go in and look at an Everton fan tomorrow at work. So I'll go and see if I can count up what my sick record's like and see if I can get a wee day off. But anyway,
you're good preparation tonight. Watch some of the Vikings to get you nice and riled up. Go in tomorrow and sort them out.
Just take a big hammer in with me. But no, thanks very much for joining me tonight, John. And as I say, we'll be in touch. We'll be back. We'll do a show. It's on either Sunday or Monday. I'm off work to watch the Super Bowl, so it might be Monday, depending on how things go. But the panel will be back, and we'll hopefully the next evening show or report show is a bit more positive. But thanks to everybody that's watching. Thanks to Russ as well there, keeping us up to date with the scores, and JK there for joining me. So thanks to everyone, and we'll be back again soon.
Cheers, Gerry. All the best.